right, welcome back. Module 6, listening between the lines. So we've talked about engagement, we've talked about creative thinking, the customer experience. The last piece is after we're asking the right questions, it's about listening between the lines. It's about communicating with our customer in a way in which they need to be communicated with. Yes, it's a gross picture you're looking at, I know, but it's the only way I can say what I'm trying to say, and that is that communication, listening to your environment for whispers of opportunity, communication is about listening not just with our ears, it's with our eyes and our heart. Shattering the stereotype is what we've talked about, but shattering the stereotype in communication is communicating in a way in which they want to be communicated to. So how many of you have done any work in behavioral styles? Myers-Briggs, DISC, colors, almost everybody in the room, sure. And I've done them for 25 years. I've used a profile that I love, and I gotta tell you that I thought that was the be-all and end-all. In other words, I thought that if I know your personality, if I know your behavioral style, I can just work with you in the way in which you need to be worked with. No other problems, no other obstacles. Not that easy. It's a wonderful tool. I'm so glad that I have it. If I know your style, that's one thing, but I found there are other obstacles. How about this one? I found out that there is a difference between man and woman. Yeah, exactly. Guys, don't get defensive. We're just wired a little differently, that's all. Women are wired a little more sophisticated than we are. Question, how many of you have ever read the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? Oh, great. What's the premise of the book? John Gray wrote this book. Just by the title, what's the premise? Anybody?
The sexes are different.
Yes, the sexes are different. John Gray went so far as to say men and women speak different languages. Men speak Martian, women speak, what was it, Venetian or Venusian? Oh, we are a chapter out of the book in my house. My wife will come home and she'll say, this house is a mess. What's she really saying? This house is a mess. But guys only, what do we hear? You slob, you get down there, did you make this mess? You get down there and clean this up. It's this guilt thing, guys. I don't know what it is. But it's the secondary message of the book that I loved. John Gray said that men won't do something. Ladies, what is it? And it's not stop and ask for directions. Men don't listen. Guys, don't get defensive. I love what he said. He said we're wired differently. Men are wired to fix things and move on. Women are wired more emotionally. Again, a chapter out of the book. And I can prove it to you. By the way, how many of you have had that conversation with your significant other? I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. One of those, do as I say, not as I do. Weeks ago, my wife came home on a Friday night. Never forget, she looks at me with these sad eyes. She said, I have had the worst week of my life at work. I said, quit. What's for dinner? Oh, big mistake. Big mistake, right? Yes, we wanted to fix things and move on. So, you're laughing? My next book is going to be Business Professionals Are From Mars. Everybody else is from Venus. Why? Anything you do in this room, it doesn't matter what you do for a living. We are wired to fix things and move on. Next customer, move on. Next problem, move on. When in fact, maybe our customer is saying to us, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. So I found a video. I'm hoping that we can play this. I think it's one of the best examples of the difference between man and woman.
Ross kissed me.
No! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
It's unbelievable.
Oh my God!
Okay, all right, we want to hear everything. Monica, get the wine and unplug the phone. Okay. Rachel, does this end well or do we need to get tissues?
Oh, it ended very well.
Oh, do not start without me! Do not start without me! Okay, all right, let's hear about the kiss. Was it like a soft brush against your lips, or was it like a, I gotta have you now kind of thing?
Well, at first it was really intense, and then, oh, God, and then we just sort of sunk into it.
Oh, so, okay, was he holding you, or was his hands, like, on your back? And,
No, actually, first they started out on my waist, and then they slid up, and then they were in my hair.
Oh.
And then I kissed her.
Tongue?
Yeah.
Cool.
There's the difference between man and woman right there. I couldn't have said it any better, yeah. So now I got to know your personality, your behavioral style. Then I have to think gender difference, man, woman, woman, man. How do I communicate? Let me throw one more into the mix. How about those pesky generations, right? Yeah, as most of you know, 4 generations working side by side in the workplace right now. I identify generations not by their birth date, but by their graduation from high school date. I'm not sure if you're aware of the statistics, but 8% of our workforce in the United States right now are traditionals. They graduated high school before 1964. Our biggest group, of course, are the baby boomers. They're 40%. They graduated high school between 64 and 82. Our second largest group is our Gen X. Gen X graduated high school between 83 and 98. And then we've got that other little group, that 16% Gen Y, and they graduated after 1998. In developing our research for the book Anticipate, we went through, we looked at generations as they affect the customer experience. One of these 4 generations we've discovered is under far more pressure than the other 3. Which one do you think it is? Anybody? Traditional. Why? I don't know who said it.
They're set in their ways.
Traditional, set in their ways. I will tell you that we found that the traditionals are the second least pressured group. Why? Because yes, they're set in their way, but they have an exit plan. From work, not from life. Okay, yeah. No, they do. They have an exit plan, and they're saying, I'll learn what I need to learn to get by for as long as I'm going to be here, but then I'm going fishing. You know, so they're the second least pressured. So you got 3 more. Which one? 3 more. Which one is more pressured? Gen X. Why?
They got the baby boomers and they got the Y.
Because they've got the baby boomers ahead of them and the Ys behind them. Any other reason? Yeah, without a doubt. Gen X, by the way, make some noise. Where are you? No, make some noise doesn't mean put your hand up. See, they're also the worst at following instructions. That's why, you know, Gen X, make some noise. There you are. Sure. Gen X is under more pressure than any of the others in the workplace. Just very quickly, some of the reasons. See, Gen X is what I call in the workplace, they're the sandwich generation, not us baby boomers. We're the sandwich generation outside of the workplace. We've got parents and we've got kids, but they've also got their parents who they work with. Not necessarily really work with their parents, but they're working with me, the baby boomer. And they feel a little guilty because I'm dad. And so they want to help dad. And then they've got their kids at home. They're all about lifestyle. So they want to get home to their children. So it's this push and pull. They're under pressure because they were the latchkey kids, remember? They were the kids that we called and we said, take out the meat to be thawed before dinner. Or even more, feed your siblings, I won't be home tonight for dinner. So we started to throw all this responsibility on them. Plus, now they're looking at Gen Ys coming in behind them who have these tools for technology. And they're saying, I need to keep up, I need to keep up. Then they look at us, the traditionals and baby boomers, and they say, where am I going to go? Look at this organization. They're not leaving. I don't know about you baby boomers, but you know, retirement is not in my vocabulary. Either we can't afford it or we just love what we do. We're not going anywhere. Gen Y, on the other hand, is coming into the workplace with this sense of, there's no sense of permanency. They're kind of saying, I'm going to try it for 4 years, for 5 years. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll become a brain surgeon. And whose fault is that, baby boomer parents, right? Oh, honey, you can do anything that you want, right? Sure. And so they don't have a sense of permanency. So it is absolutely Gen X. The point I'm trying to make is that when we start to communicate the customer experience, getting people engaged through the organization, we've got to start thinking in terms of behavioral style. We've got to think of gender. We've got to think of generations as well. It's not as easy as it may sound. So when we look at communication, I like to look at this. I looked for a definition of listening, and I found this definition by Madeline Burley Allen. It said that listening is taking in information or remaining non-judgmental. It's acknowledging the speaker in a way that invites further communication and providing limited but encouraging input, carrying the idea one step further. I love that, because listening isn't all of communication, but it's a huge part that we don't pay enough attention to. As a matter of fact, as we go on here, every study, and some of you I know have seen this, says that only 3 things make us an effective communicator: the words we use, our tone of voice, and our body language. So if I were to ask you, what percentage of 100%, how effective are the words we use, what would you tell me? 7%. Okay, so some of you have seen studies. Tone of voice, 38%, and body language? Anybody? 90-something%. I knew we were going to get to 160%. Somehow we did it, right? Every study within a few percentage points says this: 10% of the words we use, within a few percentage points, 30% is our tone of voice, 60% is our body language. What message are we giving people that's not coming out of our mouths? Let me prove it to you. I told you at the beginning, my job is to make you feel uncomfortable. Would you all hold that newborn baby in your arms and don't drop it? If you like, you can hold it like this, but if we all do it, you won't look silly. And then we're going to sing to it. Please join me. I do not have a voice, so you need to help me. Rock-a-bye baby, the fast version. Here we go. Rock-a-bye baby in the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and down will come baby, cradle and all. Shh, baby's sleeping. You ever thought about the words of this thing? Rock-a-bye baby, we're going to put you in a tree? Why we're putting you up there's a mystery to me. The wind's going to blow like a hurricane or a tornado. The branch you're on is going to break. You're going to fall and probably die. Good night. What's with that? Think about it. It has nothing to do with the words we use. Almost 100%, it's our tone of voice and our body language. What message are we giving people that's not coming out of our mouths? Give yourselves a hand. You're good sports anyway, and let's keep going. So I wanted to go on, and I wanted to give you one more thing to think about, and that is that ambiguity is reality. And I don't know if anybody in the audience has English as a second language, but I will tell you that if I had to learn this language again, it seems to me it would be pretty tough. The English language has different meanings for different words depending on context. I'll give you an example. 7 words. I didn't say John stole the pen. Tell me what I mean each time I say it. I didn't say John stole the pen. Someone else did. I didn't say John stole the pen. I'm adamant. I'm not lying. I didn't say John stole the pen. Yeah, I implied it, right? I didn't say John stole the pen. Someone else did. I didn't say John stole the pen. He borrowed it. I didn't say John stole the pen. He stole another pen. I didn't say John stole the pen. He stole something else. All of that from 7 words. So let me ask you this. What are the 2 most dangerous communication tools we have at our disposal today? Email and texting. Why? I've proven it. The minute you sit down and you start to thumb, the minute you start to type, what happened? You've lost 60% of your body language. You've lost 30% of your tone of voice. You are now down to 10% of the words you use. And you better make sure that the 10%, the words you use, are the words you want me to understand. I think I am the only person a few years ago in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, to have been fired from a volunteer position. Not an easy thing to do. I sent an email to my board of directors. I knew exactly what I meant. It's just not how they took it. That's all. So this thing called communication, we have to think of it and think of it that it is about communicating the message, but we need to constantly think about who it is we're communicating to. Everyone all right? Absolutely. You've been a great group this afternoon. The last piece is this. I think that everything I talk about falls under one umbrella. If there was such a thing, it would be the need to exercise our risk muscle. There is no such thing, but I think that no matter what we do, being creative means taking some kind of a risk. You see that line on the screen. It says, coloring outside the lines is scary business. It's the first line of a poem. I share it with all my audiences worldwide. I'll share it with you in a minute. But the bottom line is you can't be creative in the customer experience without taking some kind of a risk. I can prove it to you. I've been up here for a few hours watching you. We're not a big audience. I can tell you that in the last few hours, I'll look up so I don't look at you. I saw one of you switch your watch back. And that's very interesting to me. You must be saying, oh, he'll never know. Boom, it went back in the other arm. Oh, you're smiling? I also won't point to the person very close to the front who, when I asked you to at the beginning, you took your watch or your bracelet, I didn't see, off your left wrist, you held it up, then you put it back on your left wrist. Right? That's okay. What does it tell you? Risk is different for different people. For some of you, this is too risky, and I've heard it all. It's too big, it's too small, it hurts, I can't. That's just your edge of the page. Some of you are going to change it the minute you get into your cars. That's okay, your edge of the page. Some of you will take my challenge and keep it on your other wrist until you go to bed tonight. Your edge of the page. One thing I hope I've proven to you today is this. If we become more customer-centric, it's not about us, it's about their edge of the page. How far can I go before I've colored too far? But when it comes to risk-taking, I wanted to share the words of my favorite philosopher with you. Some of you, I don't know if any of you are into philosophy, it'll tell you how deep Jeff Tobe really is. Because my favorite philosopher retired from hockey about 10 years ago. That's how deep I am. His name is Wayne Gretzky, hockey player extraordinaire. I grew up in a town very close to where Gretzky grew up. I'll never forget, I was playing in a tournament, not against him, but the same tournament. I'd be about 18, which would make him about 14. And I was impressed because he was a 14-year-old who had reporters there. I thought that was amazing. And he looked at a reporter and he said, you know, I've missed all the shots I never took. Think about that. It's my entire business philosophy when it comes to risk-taking. I have a sign above my desk that's been there for 25 years. It says, in life you miss 100% of the shots you never take. That's what risk is all about. By the way, I saw some of you shaking your heads when I said Gretzky, far better known for another saying. I guess he was being interviewed more recently, and the reporter said to him, Wayne, how is it that you always manage to be where the puck is? And Wayne thought about it. He said, I'm not always where the puck is. I'm always where the puck is going to be. There's my question of the day. How about looking at your business, your industry, your profession, asking yourself, am I where my profession is, or am I where it's going to be? Looking through my windshield to see what's coming down the road ahead of me, instead of relying on my rearview mirror to see how it's always been done before. Everybody okay? Absolutely. I told you I wanted to share a poem with you and the story behind it. I need a prop. When I was 10 years old, I was definitely the kind of kid who colored outside the lines. I wasn't a bad student. I got A's and B's. But what I dreaded, on the bottom of our report card, what was the one word we all had that I would dread? Comments, thank you. Comments like, Jeffrey has seen the hallway more than our janitors. Yeah. Jeffrey won't stand in line when told to. I got to tell you something. If my daughters had brought that home, I'd be upset with the teacher. But I grew up in a household probably not a lot unlike yours. And it doesn't matter where you grew up or how old you are. If your parents were like mine, they said, stay in the lines. Now, they didn't say that. In my house, it sounded more like, why do you have to be class clown? Stay in the lines. Why do you always have to talk out in class? Stay in the lines. Why can't you get A's like your best friend Gary? Stay in the lines. Picture this. I'm 10 years old walking home with the worst report card I'd ever received. Not only did I have bad comments, but for the first time ever, I had a U. What's a U? Unsatisfactory. How many of you have 9, 10, 11-year-old children? Anybody? Oh, let me tell you how bizarrely they think. I know you think you know. I remember my train of thought on that day. I was scared to go home. No justification. My parents were fairly nice people, but I had never had a U before. So picture this. I'm staying on a bridge, small town in Ontario, Canada, where I grew up, overlooking a beautiful river below. Here was my train of thought. Can't go home. What are my parents going to say? River, Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer, build a boat, get out of town. I did. At 10 years old, I had a plan. If I could build a raft and float away, my dad would never find me. And a miracle happened. You know what happened? The wind blew. And at 10 years old, you're naive enough to think the only copy just went in the river. Sure. As a matter of fact, I will tell you that living in southern United States for a while, I learned one thing. I was saved. It's a southern thing. Anyway, naively, I ran home thinking my dad will never know. Well, 2 days later, my father came to me waving two things in his hands. One I recognized as my report card. I remember looking at him and saying, you swam for that? You know, what a cool dad. But remember what I said. One of the lessons today I'd like you to think about is how do we shatter the stereotype of the experience our customer expects to have with us? This is not the experience I expected to have with my father. At the time, 6'6", maybe 325 pounds, a farmer. And instead of saying or doing what I thought he was going to say or do, with his other hand, he handed me a copy of a poem and he said, here, read this. Now, he wasn't a very poetic kind of guy. He had found it. Somebody had given it to him. It was anonymously written. I remember reading it, looking up at him and saying, Dad, am I in trouble or not? I don't understand. And he said the worst words you can say to a 10-year-old. He looked at me and he said, one day, son, you'll understand. And he walked away. This is torture for a 10-year-old. What day will I understand? Monday? Tuesday? Right? 9 years later, I was cleaning my dresser drawer out to go back to college. I found a copy of the poem. It's been with me ever since, and I wanted to share it with you. At the risk of being overly dramatic as we finish, I got to tell you that I truly believe it's going to take coloring outside the lines for survival in business today. There's no way you can do what you've been doing, never mind some of you 25 years, how about just the last couple of years, and survive. We have to look at things from a different perspective, understand our customer better, and drive the message that it's about the customer experience from their perspective, not ours. Would you agree? Absolutely. Come on, everybody okay? Absolutely. You've been great. Let me share my dad's poem with you. It's called Coloring. Coloring outside the lines is scary business. Some days I don't have the courage for it at all. On my big, bold days, though, I like to let my red crayon just streak across the lines, out there with my purple in perfect freedom, no lines. And coloring outside the lines is lonely, too. I'm the only kid that doesn't get a gold star on my paper. The teacher frowns. The kids, they call me weird or dumb or stupid. Why don't they see I'm not behind them? I'm actually out in front, running free outside the lines. And it'd be nice to have a friend who colored outside the lines sometimes, too. Would you? Will you? No, I'm the only thing standing between you and dinner tonight. Ready? Lots of energy. Left hand. Will you? Absolutely. It's been my privilege. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.